So paper two of the 9093, section B is your extended writing, and I think that all of it is creative. Um, so while it may not conventionally be seen as creative necessarily, it is, to me, quite creative, and I'll tell you why. So if we look at question two, it says you have just returned from a 1 week holiday for teenagers. Write a review of the holiday, which will be posted on a travel website. Write between 600 and 900 words. So we're given our identity. So our identity that we are to embody is we are supposed to be teenagers. Even if you are 45, you are a teenager at this point. And you are returning from a 1 week holiday for teenagers. And we're presuming that you were on that holiday. You were not like, I would presume that you would be someone who participated in the holiday and not worked at the holiday or something. Because I think it would state that if you did. Now, write a review of the holiday, which will be posted on a travel website. So we know that it's supposed to be a review, so we need to know the text type. We need to know the conventions of a review. So, yes. And this is going to be posted on a travel website. So, if you're going to be using slang, since you are a teenager and you're probably writing to teenagers, since it is a holiday for teenagers, you should still be aware that you're not only writing to teenagers, because you're also writing to their parents, because I would wager that most teenagers have their parents pay for days. And so, you're also writing for their parents. So saying something like, saying using slang like vibe is different to using something like no cap, because a larger portion of the population understands the use of vibe because it kind of has an intergenerational bleed, whereas no cap doesn't have much of an intergenerational bleed. So we need to write between 600 and 900 words. Now, how I would personally do this, and I don't want to be prescriptive. I don't want you to think that I'm being prescriptive, and I don't want you to be too rigid in how you approach this. But if I see 600 to 900 words, I think, okay, about 50 to 80 words, usually about 50 words for an introduction, 50 words for a conclusion. And then I'm left with 800 words. So that leaves me with about 8 paragraphs of 100 words. Or I could do 9 paragraphs of about 80 words, which is about, if I do 10 words per line, it's about 88 lines per paragraph. And remember, don't just jump to the next paragraph because now you've had your 8 lines. You need to be using your understanding of how a paragraph works. And also try to vary a little bit. Don't just write these huge blocks of paragraphs. It's going to kind of suck. So we are writing review. Now, you can, in this review, decide to do subheadings or not, whatever you want to do. You can get creative about how you approach it, but make sure that you understand the purpose and your audience. And when you write for your purpose and your audience, you're going to use specific linguistic techniques to make things happen. Your structure is going to be based on your audience, based on your context. We're on a travel website, and so we kind of probably want we're probably going to have some call to action, maybe. I'm not sure. I'm not actually sure whether I would do a call to action, but there are many different ways that you can do this, and you can get creative about it. Now, our next question, remember, it's either or and or. So you're only choosing one question from section B. So, or question 3, you could do a descriptive piece about a busy office. And in your writing, you could focus on the sound, light, and movement inside the office to help your reader imagine the scene. Write between 600 and 900 words. So here, this is going to be a descriptive essay, and your focus needs to be on the sound, light, and movement. So you could do it many different ways. I think structure would be a really great way to approach this, and approaching it from a structural perspective would be amazing. Now, you need to understand that a descriptive essay is not the same as a narrative essay in these exams. but you can have something that kind of moves the description forward. Um, yeah, you can have something that moves the description forward, almost as if you're experiencing the world around you. I would imagine imagine describing something in the middle of like an anxiety attack, and you're having like a total like anxious, you're just an anxious bubble, and you are here in this busy office, and you are basically describing the scene as internal monologue. I mean, that could be cool, but remember, it is not like that is one thing you could do, and I don't recommend everyone do this. It's just I sometimes find these topics a little bit boring, and because they're trying to appeal to such a broad audience. When I give my students prompts, I usually give them prompts that are quite related to them. And so here we're trying to appeal to a very broad audience. Um, and so you can look at the perspective that you speak from and things like that. Just make sure that you're exploring the sound, light, and movement. Um, then we have question 4. You recently read a newspaper article which said that having a lot of possessions does not always make people happy. You decide to write an email to the editor in response to this article, giving your opinion. Write between 600 and 900 words. Now, you read a newspaper article. Great, fabulous. Okay? And it tells you what was in this newspaper article. Did you really read this article? No, you did not. It's a fictitious article. But in order to write a response to this email, this article, you're going to have to imagine something, what was actually said in this article. And my favorite responses for something like this have always been the ones that actually quote the original article. So that when I finish, I'm like, did you actually read an article? Like, I'm sure you weren't given an article, but make it believable that you actually read the article. So you're responding to an article, therefore, you must actually reference the article that you're responding to, and you're giving your opinion. Now, this is a letter to the editor, and it's got a specific purpose. What is the purpose of a letter to the editor? It could be to discuss something, it could be to argue something, it could be to persuade, it could be a reflective essay. I mean, whatever you choose, just choose it and like commit to the bit. Commit to what you're doing. If you're writing an argumentative essay, you better make it argumentative. If you're going to be reflective around your thoughts and memories, you're going to act as though you are 80 and reflecting on your life as a teenager in this world that was much better, and you had so many possessions, but everyone was unhappy, then go for it. Or you could, there are many different ways that you can approach this. And so here, this is actually the one that I find most creative, because you are creating a fictitious article and writing about a fictitious article. And I absolutely love that. And so again, you're expected to write 600 to 900 words, and you are being marked on your grammar and language and things like that, but you're also being marked on the content and whether it is actually engaging, whether it fits with the question and things like that. Now, something I do want to state here that is that your vocabulary needs to be impeccable. Um, I do recommend that you look at Barron's 3,500 SAT words. That's a good start. I usually, if I'm doing that, I would take a word a day, a couple of words. I actually do take a couple of words a day and just try to use the words in my day-to-day life, because learning words from flashcards aren't really going to, it's not really going to help much in most cases. But using words in your everyday speech, your your everyday language, the language that you use here, should be an indication of the level of English that you are capable of. I want to see what level of English you're capable of, not the level of English that you show most of the world, because I show most of the world a much lower level of English than I'm actually capable of because of my context.